Okay, starting off at number 10 now, we have WebDriver Torso. In 2013, a YouTube channel was created called WebDriver Torso. All it did was upload videos like this. Reddit users jumped on it. Theories range from the ridiculous, such as aliens, to the intriguing, such as spy communication. Eventually, a number of Reddit users came up with the answer to this whole mystery, including a blogger who made the most detailed description of it. It turns out that YouTube itself had set up the channel to test the quality of their videos. The actual content of the video is meaningless, hence the random sounds and visuals, but by comparing that video with the original file, YouTube can see how good their uploading system is for video quality. Google later confirmed that this was the case. Shame it's not aliens or spies though. Next up at number 9 now, we have the post-it notes. In 2015, Reddit user rbradbury1920 posted to Reddit saying that he kept finding post-it notes in his apartment reminding him to do errands that he had told nobody else about. He was seriously freaked out but found no signs of a break-in. It kept happening though, so he asked Reddit to help him solve it. Reddit user Kakalak made the suggestion that perhaps he was the one leaving the notes and just not remembering. He suggested it could be mental health, but also it could be a carbon monoxide leak. This odorless gas can have serious effects on people's brains and will cause death if levels are high enough. He replied by saying that he was having pretty bad headaches and that he'd set up his carbon monoxide detector right away. It was a good job he did that because that was the problem. The level had reached a dangerous 100 ppm, causing him to black out and forget that he wrote the post-it notes. Mystery solved, but even more importantly I think, a life saved. Coming at number 8 now, we have the nail through the wood. One day a Reddit user posted this image to Reddit. That's a nail going through a piece of wood, but how did it get there? As you can see, there is no hole on the piece on the left. How did the nail end up going through the other pieces? The user who posted it said he found it on a hiking trip. He said there was no visual trickery involved and the wood was just one solid block, no glue. Reddit was stumped. Nobody could figure out how it was achieved. And then, on November 21st, 2009, woodworker Steve Ramsey uploaded a video to show the solution. He made the block, soaked the end piece in boiling water, and then used a clamp to push it down enough so that he could nail a hole into the next block. Then he simply soaked it again to make it take its original form. Incredibly simple and very impressive work by him. The video is currently sitting at over 20 million views. Alright, this next one is really freaky and I would hate it if it happened to me. Moving on to number 7 now, we have the SIM card. In 2013, Reddit user ShadyBusiness15 posted pictures to Reddit showing his extension cord which had blown a fuse. Now when he took it apart, he found a SIM card with a serial number on it. What? Yeah, I would freak out too. Reddit users realized there was actually a microphone attached to the device. He was being bugged. Every time someone rang that SIM card's number, it was then listening to the whole room. He called the number on the SIM card and an automated message said, "The service is now closed. If you have voicemail, you can turn it on." He then called O2, the SIM card's manufacturer, who told him that he'd need a warrant to find out who owned that number. Well, the mystery was solved of what exactly the device was. Now they just need to figure out who put it there. Next up at number 6 now, we have Hit and Run. In 2013, Reddit user Meathead posted an image of a broken tail light from a car that had been involved in a hit and run. He wanted to identify who the driver was. Not much to go on, really, with just a tiny bit of a tail light. 400 Reddit comments poured in and eventually they identified the tail light belonged to a grey 1991 Cadillac Braun. He went to the police with that information and they were able to match it to a stolen vehicle. With this lead, they found the hit and run driver and then laid charges on him, or her. I don't know. Maybe Reddit can figure out the gender from the taillight too. Alright, at number 5 now, we have the cipher. In 2012, a Reddit user posted saying that a homeless man had given him $50 with markings on it and a note covered in some sort of strange code. Redditors quickly identified it as a bifid cipher, a message scrambled using a square grid system. They decoded it to read, "There's plenty more money to make, figure this out, and prepare to meet." Very spooky and cryptic. It also gave the address of a hot dog stand and told him to go there and ask for Mr. Input. And then he got another message threatening him because he tried to get Reddit to help him. Soon after, the original poster deleted his initial post after claiming he was now getting death threats, and his family were too. The Reddit hunt continued though, and the theories for this now range from recruitment for the Department of Defense to some sort of elaborate marketing campaign for a local spy museum. Some people say this is solved, while others say that's exactly what Mr. Input wants you to think. Next up at number 4 now, we have the Strongsville Jane Doe. In 1975, 3 boys found a skeleton by a river in Ohio. It was identified as belonging to an 18 to 25-year-old woman who had been shot in the head some 5 months before her discovery. Detectives hit a dead end on identifying who she was, and it just became another cold case. Fast forward to 2015, where Reddit user Call Me Ice decided to do some digging on the case herself. She managed to obtain the original autopsy report, including a photo of the woman's skull. She then enlisted the help of a forensic scientist to create this facial reconstruction. A while later, they found this image of a 17-year-old Linda Pagano who went missing in September 1974 after an argument with her stepfather. They contacted the medical examiner's office, who say they were already working on that exact match. Shortly after, Linda's sister confirmed that the skeleton did belong to Linda. The Reddit community praised user Call Me Ice for her incredible initiative and detective work. Moving on to number 3 now, we have Stonehenge. In 2011, Reddit users noticed that someone had created a strange subreddit with a long string of numbers and letters and was just dumping weird code into it. Thousands of Redditors tried to figure out what this code all meant. Eventually, one Reddit user called Fraglet decided to put his programming skills to good use. He decoded one of the posts to reveal it was actually a picture of Stonehenge drawn in ASC2 art. Other posts were decoded to read things like Happy New Year 2001 and also what looked like coordinates in North Korea. Eventually, the whole subreddit was just closed. Most of the code was never even decoded. On the one hand, it was a victory to even uncode just some of it, but many users still want to figure out what the whole thing was about. Coming in at number 2 now, we have Grateful Doe. In 1995, a hitchhiker was killed in a car accident in Virginia. Because of his injuries, police were unable to identify who he was. They found a note on his body referring to him as Jason from 2 women called Caroline T and Caroline O. The police were completely lost on this one. Almost 20 years went by and nobody had solved the mystery. Then, in 2014, Reddit user Zombie Gray, real name Layla Betts, began to research the cold case herself. A whole community sprung up on Reddit to help her. She posted digitally recreated pictures of the hitchhiker. Then she was contacted by a man who said the images looked a lot like his roommate Jason Callahan, who he hadn't seen since 1995. That's when they realized they were onto something. Incredibly, Jason's mother saw these pictures online at the same time. They were able to contact the Virginia Medical Examiner's Office to do a DNA comparison between the hitchhiker and Jason's mother. Sure enough, it was a match. Layla Betts, with the help of the larger Reddit community, had solved a 20-year-old cold case and brought closure to Jason's family. And finally at number 1 now, we have the box of crazy. In 2013, Reddit user TramStopDan posted images of a box that he found in the trash. What he found inside was this weird collection of posters, illustrations, maps, and personal belongings. Some of the text and pictures made references to alien invasions and trains with animal faces. The pages were so intricately detailed. This was obviously done by someone who took the work very seriously. Eventually, Reddit's investigation led them to a man named Daniel Christensen, a Danish immigrant to the US who has since died. They found out that Daniel had become obsessed with the book of Ezekiel from the Bible. Couple that with his apparent schizophrenia, and the book appears to be his belief in the Bible as proof of aliens visiting Earth. The case was then closed as solved. However, for the people who said this was a government cover-up the whole time, this only added fuel to the fire. Starting off at number 10 now, we have Cicada3301. Those of you who used to watch my old mystery videos may recognize this name. Cicada3301 was an internet mystery that gripped Reddit and the internet at large when it was posted online in January 2012. It was a set of puzzles. Its purpose? To recruit new code breakers from the public for a secret organization. The puzzles were extremely difficult to break, even with an entire subreddit of people banding together to attempt it. The puzzles spanned across many different forms of communication media, including the internet, telephone, original music, digital images, and even an unpublished cryptic book written in ancient runes. A handful of Reddit users claim to have actually solved the puzzles, which were repeated every year for a few years after. Reportedly, they were then contacted by a secret organization who asked them questions about their support of information freedom, online privacy and freedom, and rejection of censorship. If they liked the answers they heard, they were then invited to a private forum where they were instructed to devise and complete a further project. After that, the stories get blurry. These days, people are convinced that another cicada puzzle could drop any minute now. At number 9 now, we have 11BX1371. That's the name of this 2015 viral video that Reddit obsessed over. It's 2 minutes long, all in black and white, showing a person in a plague doctor costume walking through an abandoned building. It's pretty creepy. There was also this strange buzzing noise playing in the background. Redditors found messages hidden inside the video and its sound spectrogram, as well as images of tortured or mutilated people. A lot of people speculated that it may have been a threat of bioterrorism against the US, but many people felt that it was all just for fun. Their suspicions were confirmed when, months later, a man called Parker Warner Wright admitted to making the video as an art project. Mystery solved then. Doesn't make the video any less creepier. Coming at number 8 now, we have the squirrel. In 2015, a Reddit user posted this image stating that it had been made by his friend's computer who was working on AI. People were amazed and freaked out too, and they wondered how exactly a computer managed to make this. All we know is that the computer started with the image of a squirrel lying on a wooden rail. Okay, that's fine, but how did it end up here? Look at the weird snail tentacles and the dog faces everywhere. There's even a few frog faces in there somewhere, I think, and at the back, on the right, I think I even saw a weird looking alien. I don't know. Redditors were stumped, but then user RegX put forward their theory that a computer started with a normal image of a squirrel, but then did Google searches on tiny parts of the image and blended in the top result each time. They also said, I guess that small bright spots tend to match eyes and small dark spots tend to match animal noses. As the images are composited, the spots start to look even more like animal faces, and this influences searches in the surrounding area in the next round. The compositing process here apparently normalizes the pixels towards grey, resulting in this extreme HDR gone wrong appearance. Well, there you go. That makes total sense to me. Next up at number 7 now, we have the old tape. In 2016, a strange recording began circulating on Reddit. It was reportedly playing on various radio stations in the mid-90s and had surfaced once again. Now before we go any further on this one, take a quick listen.
Son of John Sr. Bell, brother Captain Chris, at the front of the
Pretty creepy, right? Now according to rumours, the clip was from Columbia University's WKCR 89.9 radio station. They said that its signal was hijacked in order to play the creepy clip. As for those names, well, Reddit deduced that they were obituaries, including that of Robert Oppenheimer, the man credited with the creation of the atomic bomb. That doesn't seem to be an accident. People began speculating about what the names meant and who hijacked the station. Perhaps the whole thing was an elaborate fake. In the end, the Unresolved Mysteries subreddit deduced that it was nothing more than college DJs just having some fun, perhaps to creep people out for their own amusement. Now if that's true, it does remove the question of who did this, but it doesn't make it any less scary. Moving on to number 6 now, we have the song. Have you ever had a song stuck in your head for a long time and you just can't remember the name of it? Maybe you try singing it to other people, but they don't know what the song is either. It's really frustrating, isn't it? Well, not as frustrating as this. In 2002, someone shared a song on a message board and asked people for the name of it. This is what it sounded like. It sounds like it's from the 80s, but other than that, nobody could find anything about the song. It was dubbed Stay the second time around, even though people didn't know what the real name was, and it was posted to YouTube in 2007. This brought the mystery to a whole new community, but still, nobody could figure out what the song was. The only new knowledge was that it had been recorded from a German radio station in either 1984 or 1986. Then, in 2013, a breakthrough came through on Reddit. A Reddit user named Stefan, who worked for a Swedish radio station, recognized the song. He posted to Reddit saying that it was by an artist called Johan Lindell. Stefan's radio show actually got in touch with Johan and interviewed him. He told them that Stay was actually called Up on the Roof, and it was from his 1985 album Ghost Rider. The next question was, why didn't Johan help with this internet mystery if he wrote the song? And he said he never really uses the internet, which I'm sure we can all relate to. Moving on to number 5 now, we have The Button. For April Fool's Day 2015, the Reddit team did something very strange on the website. They created a big red button for everyone to click. There was also a timer next to the button, and that was pretty much it. There was a short post that said the timer will count down from 60 seconds. If the button is pressed, the timer will reset to 60 seconds and continue counting down. You may only press the button once. Naturally, everyone went insane. What would happen when the timer reached 0? It was a total mystery. Unfortunately, everyone was clicking it so much that the timer would barely get past 58 seconds before it was reset again. Users could only push the button though if their account was created before that day, and they could only push it once. This meant there was a finite amount of people who could press it. To make things even more interesting, users would be given a coloured flare depending on when they pushed the button. Purple if they pushed it in the first 8 seconds, blue in the next 10, then green, yellow, orange, and finally red. This encouraged people to never let the timer hit 0. Everybody wanted a flare. Eventually though, after 2 months and 1 million users pressing the button, the timer reached 0. They were finally about to get their answer, and it was underwhelming. A Reddit mod simply thanked everyone for their participation and just archived the thread. Not all mysteries are satisfying when they're solved. Next up at number 4 now, we have The Whistler. This is a good one. In 2016, a Reddit user posted a creepy story about hearing a strange whistling noise in the swamps and woods near their childhood home when they were a kid. It sounded like a bird, but each whistle was so different that it was almost human-like. High, then low, then high again. A few years later, they heard the noise again. A chill went down their spine. Even their own mum was terrified. As the years went on, he thought about this less and less. At the age of 24, he was with his girlfriend watching some fireworks by a river. When his girlfriend left to get more beers, a dark figure began paddling down the river. He stared at the figure for a moment, and then he heard the whistle. The exact same whistle that he'd heard as a kid. He was terrified, and he asked the figure who they were. There was no answer. They just whistled one more time and then slowly paddled out of sight. He came to Reddit asking for help, for an answer, but nobody could find one. Finally, 2 years later, a user called Nasvan77 posted the answer. They recognized the whistle as that of a bird, specifically the black-capped chickadee's phoebe call. I think I got that right. They said it was a common bird within the US and that the dark figure may just be the sound of someone imitating the call. Mystery solved. Hopefully. I really hope that's the answer. Alright, moving on to number 3 now, we have the shooting of Walter Scott. In April 2015, Walter Scott, an unarmed black man, was fatally shot by Michael Slager, a police officer in North Charleston. The incident gained widespread attention due to a bystander filming the whole thing on their phone. The footage was shaky, blurry, and kind of difficult to watch. Over on Reddit, a Canadian cinematographer called Daniel Vauchart managed to stabilize the footage using software which made the events a lot clearer. He said he got involved because truth is the foundation of everything. The footage made it clear that Scott was fleeing from Slager, which directly contradicted his police report. In December 2017, Slager was sentenced to 20 years in prison for second-degree murder. Next up at number 2 now, we have Sad Satan. A few years ago, a game started being spread online that claimed to be the most terrifying game on the internet. It was called Sad Satan. The game was creepy to say the least. It was reportedly from the dark web. The player is taken down monochromatic corridors while horrifying samples loop in the background. Strange images pop up on the screen, but then the game starts to take a darker turn. Convicted murderers and and paedophiles appear, and then images of their victims too. There was even a clip of a beheading. The violent gore and child pornography was embedded into the game itself. A community on Reddit discovered the full extent of the horrors in this game and decided to do something about it. They created the Sad Satan subreddit and patched together a totally clean version of the game, without any of the images I've mentioned before. Moving on to number 1 now, we have the giant purple cube. In August 2018, Fortnite players were stumped by a huge purple cube that spawned on the map. It had been summoned by a lightning storm and had seemingly random movements. Players tried to attack it but received electrical strikes that damaged their health and even killed them. Users on this subreddit for Fortnite put their heads together to figure out what was going on. They mapped out the path of the cube's movements to try and figure out the mystery of where the cube would finally end up next. They decided that the final location would be the famous Loot Lake. This was later confirmed by data miners who discovered a command saying "move to lake" inside the game's code. Sure enough, the cube eventually dropped into Loot Lake, turning the whole thing into a sort of huge bouncy castle. So there you go, one of life's greatest mysteries finally solved.
Coming in at number 10, we have The Brother Is Gone. A Reddit user wrote in about how him and his brother used to always play in the forest behind their house when they were growing up. They would spend hours out there and it always was so much fun. His parents always warned them that they should never go out there at night. There wasn't anything supernatural with this thing, but it was a forest filled with predators at night, and there was a chance that they could get eaten by a cougar or something. Well, one night his brother thought that he should challenge his parents by going into the woods at night, but in the morning he was still gone. Once the whole family realized what happened to him, they sent out a massive search party for him. They looked everywhere, but the only thing they could find was his shoes. Why did he take off his shoes? To this day he still has no idea what happened to his brother. Did someone take him? Was it an animal, or was it something much more terrifying? Coming in at number 9, we have Goodbye Mom. Here's another story, this time a mother who ran away. A family of 4 came home to find that their mom was missing. They had no idea what happened to her. At first they thought maybe she had gone out with some friends, but after they couldn't find her anywhere and she wasn't answering her phone at all, they decided that it was time to call the police. The police searched the house and it was clear that she ran away. Lots of her clothes were missing. She had taken money out of the family safe and she had taken all of her IDs. Her car was also missing. 2 weeks later, her car was found abandoned on the side of the road, but she was still nowhere to be found. The family put up posters trying to find their mom, but eventually they had to accept the fact that she was gone forever. Coming in at number 8, we have Moving In. This is such a freaky story. You really need to check out the history of a place before you move into it, because you could be walking face first into a horror show. A Reddit user talked about moving into a new place and how they were so excited. After moving into this apartment, they would notice at night they would always hear a strange scraping noise. No matter how much they searched, they could never find the origin of this noise. After getting settled in for a few weeks, they started to get to know their neighbors. One of our Reddit users' neighbors told her that there were 2 families who used to live in this apartment. Apparently 2 families back to back have gone missing from this place. No one has been able to figure out what happened to them either, but I bet you the rent was so low at that apartment. Coming in at number 7, we have The Runaways. Reddit user Guy in Florida wrote on Reddit about a story of a mother who was dating someone new. Her new boyfriend was getting to know the family, and I guess he was getting a little too close because one day he and her daughter ran off together. They took the family van and disappeared. The mother was devastated but couldn't understand why they would do this to her. She hired a private investigator to try and find them, but all the leads that came back seemed to be kinda phony. Then a few years later, the city drained the canal close to the mother's home and they found the van in the canal with the daughter and the boyfriend both inside. So maybe they didn't intend to run away together, but the both of them just died when they drove off the road into the canal. Coming at number 6, we have Boat Accident. A man was on vacation with his wife, and partway through the trip he booked a boat for the 2 of them to head out on a fishing trip. The day before the trip, the man's wife got food poisoning, so she could not go, but she insisted that he head out and enjoy himself. Well, a storm rolled in and he never made it back from the trip. She contacted the police, but all that was found was a broken shell of the boat. She was devastated and eventually had to return home without her husband. Then a few weeks later she received a call from the local authorities who had seen him. They didn't get an opportunity to bring him in, but he was spotted walking around the downtown core. She flew back out to find him, and after following a trail of clues, the search ended up at a dead end. Coming in at number 5, we have Daddy Didn't Come Home. Someone's dad going out for a pack of smokes and then never coming home is a story as old as time, but not every dad who goes missing ran away from his family because he's a deadbeat dad. Sometimes you have a good old-fashioned mystery on your hands. A Redditor wrote in about a story he heard when he was younger, about a man with a wife and 2 kids who went to work one morning. He called his wife when his shift ended. He was on his way home and he never made it back. All the regular legal events went through, but he couldn't be found. One of the strangest parts about this case was there was footage of this man leaving work in his truck, and his truck was seen on a security camera not even a mile from his home. But nothing could be found to help that family find their dad. His vehicle, any records of him, everything was gone forever. Coming in at number 4, we have The Seance. A girl at a Catholic school thought it would be a funny idea to mess around with some witchcraft in the basement of her school. I guess if you're going to a school that is protected by God, it should be no surprise that witchcraft would be one of the ways you want to rebel. Well, a group of girls pulled this off, and afterwards one of the girls seemed to be acting strange. No one really paid attention until she started to have outbursts in class, and her parents say that she started waking up in the middle of the night screaming. This all climaxed when the girl went missing in the middle of the night. Everyone in town went out searching for this girl, but she was never found. Maybe messing around with dark magic attracted something or someone that stole her away. Coming in number 3, we have Mayumi Arashi. Her story blew up all over the internet a little while ago, and it was all over Reddit. The story of Mayumi Arashi, a young Japanese girl who went missing after she left home to meet up with a friend to study. Police got involved, but they couldn't find her. Mayumi's sister Yoko spoke with her friend, but she stated that Mayumi never planned to study with her that night. There was a male suspect who police thought could have been the one to kidnap Mayumi, but they could never link him back to the case. Coming in number 2, we have Lars Mittank. This is a wild story of someone who was out for what seems to be a normal vacation, but then things start to get insane. It was Lars and his friends who went on a trip to Bulgaria, and the group of them were having a pretty good time until things started to get out of hand. They got into a fight with some of the locals, and Lars got hit in the head pretty hard. His eardrum got ruptured, but the fight was broken up before things got any worse. The thing that sucks about this is that with his ruptured eardrum, he was unable to fly, and he and his friends were supposed to fly back in 2 days. He tells his friends that they should leave without him, and they do, but while Lars was alone, he starts to become extremely paranoid. He thinks people are following him, and he calls his mom to book him a flight back home and cancel all of his credit cards. The next day he goes to the airport, and while waiting to get on the plane, he is approached by airport security who wants to speak with him. He then runs out of the airport, jumps a fence, and runs into some bushes, disappearing forever. Coming in at number 1, we have Dorothy Jane Scott. Bugs Doing Things wrote on Reddit about the case of Dorothy Jane Scott. This is a very frightening missing persons case. Dorothy started getting calls from an unknown person. This person was telling her that they were going to find her and kill her, and they had been stalking her for quite some time, and they knew exactly where they were going to nab her from. Then one day when Dorothy was walking to her car in the parking lot of a hospital, she was grabbed and she was never seen again. Police searched for her, but there was no luck. What makes this even worse is that the killer would call Dorothy's family for years after this happened to taunt them and try to drive them insane with the death of their daughter.